Well, that sounds very much like your name to me. How are you doing? You okay? Good morning. Rita is with us now. How are things in the Rita establishment?
Things are wonderful. The sun is shining. It's getting warm. You know, I can never complain when the weather's like this. It makes
No.
everything slightly better.
Yes, this is a result of one of your many requests for the sunshine to appear, and it looks like it looks to me like you've been heard at last, or maybe you've been whinging at someone, and they've sort of
Yes.
keep her
I,
happy.
I mean, I'm happy to take credit for the entire UK for all of my spiritual askings for sunshine. You
Okay,
know, feel free to thank me. Yeah, maybe someone listened to me.
Rita,
But
thank you. There you
you're
go.
very welcome.
That's all
It
you want.
tends to be one of my weekly prayers. Please bring us some.
Yes, indeed. Well, you've done well. So, you've probably had a busy, successful week. You normally have. You are a very positive person, and for me, I have to say that every week when I go to talk to you, um, normally when you talk to most people, there's the negatives, and a few positives, and whatever. And sometimes it's very difficult to find a balance. But you seem to be always find a positive and an upbeat in things. Is that something we can all do?
It's something that anybody can do. It's about how you decide to perceive a particular situation. You know, I am not in any way naive. There is a huge amount of um, struggles and difficulties, not just in the world, but in my own life. You know, not everything is sunshine and roses. However, everything that happens in my world is essentially a fact. If someone is ill, it's essentially a fact. If I don't know, invested money and lost it, it's a fact. These things are just in and of themselves moments in time, and I can choose to perceive them and react to them in one of two ways. One would be the negative, and to say, you know, I've lost this money and it's then going to create this spiral, and you know, you go inward and create a negative. Or I look at something in a positive manner because that's what I choose to project onto it. And if I continue to project positivity onto each situation, even if that is alongside the compassion and empathy of potentially sadness within a situation as well, that positivity tends to then create more positive actions. So in life, every single thing that happens, every single moment, and every single person that comes into your life and situation is just that. It's just a person. It's just a situation. It's just a moment. It's how we choose to perceive it that has the biggest effect.
Okay, well, that's always a great thing. A lot of people have anxiety and worries, and they also have preconceptions about things whereby they think that things are going to be actually worse than what they are. But in reality, that's probably not the problem. But of course, I suppose it could be said that if they had this perception and if they had the attitude, something that would normally brush off maybe you and I, for example, for somebody else might be a monumental problem. And is it about training yourself to do that, or is it something at some point a light comes on and you go, actually, that wasn't as bad as what I thought?
I think there's a little bit of both, but for most people, it genuinely takes an outside external source to highlight something. Right. So usually when we have huge amounts of anxiety or internal distress, we are so caught up in that everything we see is through the lens of anxiousness and anxiety. And therefore, it almost takes an external force to come in, put a hard stop on it and say, okay, let's stop your brain, because all that's happening is with anxiety, our brain is moving, finding things to pile on top of it, because that's what gives it the comfort of being anxious. Our brains, once they are in a particular state, even if that state is not healthy for us, like to stay there. Our brains don't like change. They like sort of homeostasis. So, you know, once we're in a state of anxiety, it's hard to get out until someone or something comes in, creates a stop and allows us to see with a bit more clarity. But yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy.
No. And so for when you speak to your clients about they may be anxious about their weight, their size, their shape, whatever it happens to be, all of the above. Is that something that you try and instill in them to see it in a different way, whereby they're not so hell-bent on knocking themselves and find a bit of positivity within themselves? Do you try and instill them on that, or do you let them try and find it themselves?
It's a little bit of both. Most of the time you do, it's helping people find what is already there. And people have positivity within them. But if we're so immured in self-loathing and self-doubt and a lack of self-worth, and that's all we see. One of the things that I always do in most of my sessions is I started off by asking what's been positive about the week, what's gone well for you this week. That's my first question at the beginning of every session. And certain clients will respond with, oh, I didn't do this, or that was bad, or I wasn't able to do that, or I failed on that. And even though the question was about what's been positive, their initial reaction is to move to what's gone negative. And that is not because they haven't had loads of positives. Those positives are there, but in their heart, they aren't worthy. They are self-doubting everything they do, usually because of some sort of emotional trauma that has happened to them, whether it's abandonment, whether it was emotional neglect. Something has happened that means that they feel unworthy of love and praise and positivity. So they immediately find whatever they've done negative. So it's about, in those instances, helping them find the positives, but not just find them, actually hone in on them first, so that they are top of the mind rather than pushed down by any situation that they perceive to be negative, because even the negatives aren't actually negative. If someone says, oh, I had a bad day in terms of what I ate, well, why are you classifying it as a bad day? I might have a day where I have a McDonald's breakfast, Subway for lunch, and pizza for dinner.
Wonderful.
Okay, might have a day like that. Do I classify it as a bad day? Absolutely not. In that day, I needed that. There was a reason for it. I would have enjoyed it. It gave me something. And those are the positives. I then don't wake up the next day and go, oh my goodness, life is over and I might as well just continue to eat like this and throw in a bottle of Pinot at the same time. No, in that moment, it was good because it gave me what I needed.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Oh,
even when it's a bad day, it's not a bad day.
Okay, right. Now I say it's a different way of looking at things, and there's always there are two sides to a story. Now, we mentioned off air a little while ago that apparently it's social functions and being able to say no and all the rest of it, where people would perceive that if they've been invited to a birthday party, a wedding, whatever it happens to be. Even if it's something for the children at school, some social thing that's extended from the school, and maybe they're a bit concerned about going, maybe because it's COVID or because they don't want to go, but they feel as if they're pressured, as if they're expected to be there, and so they feel bad about things. Maybe they find a way of excusing themselves without feeling bad about it.
So we're coming into the summer, and the summer in general for people tends to be the party season. There's lots of barbecues, there's lots of garden parties. We tend to get invited to more social occasions over the summer. And what I hear a lot, not just from my clients, but just in general, is, oh, we really enjoy going to the parties, but I'm shattered. Or I really enjoyed it, but now I've got a hangover. Or I really enjoyed it, but I wasn't in control of the food. So what tends to come out of this is, I drank too much, I've got a hangover, I'm now making poor decisions the next day. I've done all of these social functions, I'm absolutely shattered, because although they're fun, they're not relaxing. They're not recharged.
No, they're draining in a way, aren't they?
They're draining. So you get to the end and you're absolutely exhausted, which has the same effect as a hangover in terms of willpower, motivation, choices. So again, we start to make poor choices in what we might be eating, drinking, doing. Or thirdly, it's about being presented with a load of, because let's be honest, you don't usually go to a barbecue and they say, oh, here's a fresh green salad. That tends to be stuck in the corner whilst the burgers and the sausages are sort of rolling on. And so people feel obliged to eat what's there. And I think one of the biggest things is either being able to say no when you genuinely want to say no, and if you don't, how to navigate it. So on the whole, if it's a couple, most of the time the women are in charge of the social. It's like, okay, we're going here this weekend, and men tend to just go along with it.
Really? You think?
Women tend to be in control of the diary. So what usually happens is you'll get invited to maybe 3 things, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You say yes to all because they're all your friends and you feel like you should. But if you see it like this, if you go to every single one of your friends' occasions, you're shattered. You're then, throughout the rest of the summer, because you're continually tired, not working to 100%, you're maybe at 70% the whole time. You're at 70% in your relationships as well. What you're giving to people is at 70%. And imagine, because you're at 70%, your choices are a little bit worse. Weight starts maybe piling on because you're not looking after yourself in the same way. You start to have a low level resentment towards yourself and a frustration that this is happening, which comes out in little bursts throughout. So not only are you at 70% in your relationships with your friends, but also you've got low level frustrations that start to seep out. Are you being your best for your friends at that point? Absolutely not. Imagine that weekend, instead of saying yes to 3, you just said yes to 1. You had a great time. You had time to relax, recharge, and you're at 100%. You make good choices. You don't start to put on the weight. You don't feel exhausted. So all of your relationships are working at 100%. And you don't have these low-level frustrations and the weight coming on that maybe create intermittent bursts of anger, sadness, disappointment, whatever it might be. And most people create a fear in their head that if I don't say yes, they won't like me. Absolute rubbish. Your friends and your family love you regardless of whether you go to a social occasion or not. And I think most people have a fear that a lot of people are people pleasers these days. And it's about understanding that every time we say yes to somebody else, we are saying no to ourselves. That's not always a bad thing, but if that's all you ever do, say yes to others to say no to yourself, then you are going to create a downward spiral of poor health, poor energy levels, and poor choices.
Yeah. Okay. Have you ever thought about being a member of the government or, some sort of influential society? It's just that you always seem to have this wise words. Is this things that have come about over a period of time, or is it just your observations?
It's a bit of both. It's my own experience. Everything that I say usually comes from something that I've done myself. I've been the people pleaser. I've said yes to absolutely everything, and I've worked myself to the bone and had burnout and seen what it's done to not only my relationship with myself, but my relationship with other people. And I would never want to speak with authority on an area that I didn't have some sort of personal understanding of. We can all, doesn't have to be the exact same situation, but it might be if someone's gone through something, you've gone through a different situation, but you've both come out of it with the same feelings, then there is a connection, there is a relation there. Have I ever thought of government? Absolutely not. It does not appeal to me in any way. I don't think I would be welcomed warmly into Boris Johnson's old boys club somehow.
Well, here's the thing. I've just realised, of course, if you are speaking with accuracy, wisdom, and clarity with people, they wouldn't like that anyway. So let's not go there. Listen, it's been a pleasure, Norm. I know you've got to get off and you've got other things to do. I've just found a song for you while we've been on, because I thought, as you're speaking with so wise stuff, I thought what I would do is play this. Jason Mraz and Wise Woman. Rita, you have a great day, and we'll speak to you soon. All right.
All right.
Ta-da. Bye-bye.